Hey guys, TikTok here. We are going to be doing some outdoor art creating today. So super excited about that. So what does that mean? That means that we are going to be learning about the outdoors and how it can inspire us to create whatever we want. So what we're gonna do, first things first, we're gonna go on a nature walk. What you wanna do is you wanna get your activity sheet and get ready for that. So we're gonna go on a nature walk and we're gonna be kind of detectives. And then we're going to pick up some leaves on the way. We'll talk about that in a second. And then we also are going to get some sticks and that sort of a thing so that we can make some wind chimes. And then we are also going to take some pictures that are from the vantage point or the eye of different bugs. Super excited about that. So we can talk about that in a second too. And then we're going to have a very special guest, my friend Rocky. She is going to tell us a little bit about how she uses outdoor art in her garden, which is really cool. So first things first, what I want you to do, grab your activity sheet and grab a spyglass of some sort. I'm going to use a paper towel roll. Can you see me? Because I can see you. All right. So what you're going to do is there should be a list of all of the different cool things that you might find out in nature. And what you're going to do is you're going to spy around to see what you can find. Once you find it, check it off on your list, and then we will go. While you're out, also, what I want you to do is I want you to find fallen leaves, different shapes, different sizes from different plants. Make sure that they are fallen so they can't be attached to anything. They have to be already on the ground. They can be ones from last fall. They could be ones that may have just fallen off accidentally, so they could be brown or they could be green still. All different kinds with all different textures. Grab about 3 or 4, okay? Because we're going to use those a little bit later for some leaf rubbing projects. And then I want you to also find sticks. Again, fallen sticks. Make sure that they are not attached to any trees. You want to make sure that you are getting the thick ones, maybe some little ones. You want longer ones, but nothing longer than your fist to your elbow, okay? Fist to your elbow, all right? So now you could get a big long one and then break it up into sizes that are that size. But so that's great. And then we will come back and we will do some art. Very exciting. All right. Let's go do some detective work. All right, tip time with TikTok. If you are going on a hike or a walk or anything like that, if you leave your backyard, you want to make sure that you're bringing a buddy. And specifically, you need to make sure that an adult is with you, okay? So if you're just hanging out in your backyard and you're doing your walk around your backyard to find all the different cool things that you can find in the nature of your backyard, if you stay there, maybe you just need a buddy. But if you are outside and you're walking in your neighborhood or you're walking in a park or anything like that, make sure to bring an adult with you. And if you're also walking out in your neighborhood or out on the street or anything like that, you want to make sure that you are obeying any traffic laws that are out there, any health laws that might be happening right now. So if it's still like social distancing, you want to make sure that you're staying away from people. If it's still time to have a mask, make sure that you're taking a mask. Just all in all, make sure that you're doing everything to make sure that you're safe. All right? Cool. Now, go do your nature walk. So I'm about to go out on my walk, and oh my goodness, guess what I see? I see this tree with really cool bark. Look at it. It's kind of shaggy, and then it goes into smooth up at the top. This is called a sycamore. And what? That bark pattern is really interesting. So I'm out and I am going on my journey, and what is that I see? Look at that leaf. I bet that would be a really cool one to do a rubbing with. I wonder if I can find one down on the ground. So I'm out on my walk, and oh my goodness, I'm spotting something interesting. Probably only interesting at my neighborhood, but let's look. Would you look at that? There's bamboo shoots down on the ground. I'm totally gonna take one for my wind chimes. I'm almost done with my walk, but oh my goodness, I've spotted something new. Look, I found a flowering tree. I wonder what kind it is. All right, I'm back home. I saw some really cool stuff outside. Now, it's time for you to go and do your own nature detective work. Make sure you bring back some leaves that were on the ground, some sticks that were on the ground for our leaf rubbing and our wind chimes. So, go see what what you get, and happy hunting. Okay, so our first art project is all about those pieces of nature that you brought in from your walk. So what I brought in were a couple of different types of leaves and a little bit of bark. So I'm interested to see how this looks when we do some leaf rubbings. So the whole point of a leaf rubbing is you take your leaf and you put it underneath a piece of paper, and you can put it in the center of the paper, you can put it on the side of the paper, whatever you want. It's up to you because it's your piece of art. So then you take a crayon, and that's not the color I want, this one. I'm gonna use blue. And you can take all of the paper off so that it's just a rubbing like this. These are brand new crayons. I don't really want to do that. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're doing it on the side of your crayon, and because you don't want to be doing this, that's too much, but you want to be kind of just rubbing it gently, okay? So how you do this is you want to kind of push down on the leaf, and as you do that, you want to just start rubbing. So see how it's starting to appear on our paper, because what happens is you have the difference in texture between just your regular paper and that leaf. That leaf is going to give it a lot of really cool different, you'll be able to see the different pieces of your leaf. So all of the veins, all of the side pieces, all of the, like the stem, if you go over the stem, it's really pretty cool. So just make sure to push down hard, but not too hard, and use the side of a crayon. Don't use the tip of a crayon, because otherwise you're just coloring it. You're not necessarily rubbing it with the crayon. So a little bit more down there. All right, look at that. See? Isn't that cool? So you really saw all of the different pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of this, and then we'll look at it and see a little bit of how you can use the different sides and all of that sort of thing to make your piece of art even more interesting. Just a second. Let me get to it. All right. Alright, so we've gone through and we've done our leaf rubbing. So when you're doing your leaf rubbings, the thing that you're really looking for is that texture change. So you can see where all of the veins are in this particular leaf right here. And I thought it was kind of cool because this one has a bit of a difference from one side to the other. So, right, the purple is this side and the orange is this side. And so you can see the difference in texture because you can really see the vein in this particular one, but you can't really see much on this one, which I thought was kind of cool. Down here is the bark, and you can definitely see a bit of a change between down there and the actual portion that's on the bark, which I think is really cool. So, you know, when you're leaf rubbing, it doesn't matter what you do, just that it looks kind of cool. You can go on from here, maybe take a little bit of this one, put it just on the side down here, or you can go through and you can decorate what is called negative space. So anything that isn't colored right now is what is called negative space. So you can go in and you can make designs in there, or it's really up to you because art is up to you. So, so enjoy. Share with us what you've created. I want to see it. All right. So for our next project, we want to be looking for how we can make natural sounds. So you should have gone through and picked up some sticks or picked up something that outside off the ground that could possibly make a wind chime. So that's what we're going to do today, because we want to be thinking about how we can make sound or music naturally. So one thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a wind chime. So I went ahead, I picked up some sticks, and I went ahead and took off all the bark and broke it down into 3 pieces. I don't know if you remember, but I also found some bamboo, and I decided to take one piece of that, and I think that's where I'm going to be hanging my wind chimes from. I also have some recycled cans. These are just kind of, I think they were beans or something, I don't know. But using recycled material is also a way to make sure that you're being natural with everything that you do. How I'm going to put it onto everything, I'm going to use yarn. And then I'm also going to use some paint in order to make these things look a little bit nicer just than, you know, this. Pretty cool though, right? Pretty cool. Makes a nice sound. So I'm going to go ahead and put mine together. Pause here and go ahead and put yours together. And you can use whatever you have on hand. Just make sure that it sounds awesome. All right. Okay, so how did you guys do? I'll go through what I did and explain a little bit about what I did. And if you didn't already do yours, that's cool. Pause after I get done and you can go and work on yours. So this is what I ended up with. Listen to that sound. So pretty. So what I ended up doing, I painted the outside of the cans a pretty color. I like the colors, like our cooler colors, so I like to do that. And then I also painted the sticks. I wrapped the ends of the sticks with yarn and the top piece of bamboo that I had, which could also be a stick, with yarn, and just made a hanger there. If you can't do this, that's completely fine. Ask a grown-up to help you. And then I just made sure that they came down so that when the wind blows them, it makes them able to kind of rattle against each other, and that's how we get the sounds from them. Because if it's just like this, it's not as much fun as if they're up and out and making really cool sounds, right? So let's see. One thing that you will probably need a help with is if you do use a soup can or any kind of can, you may need help putting a hole in the bottom. The hole in the bottom right here is, I have a little tool called an awl, and I use that to make the hole, but you can use a pretty thick nail, and you can nail in the bottom, and that'll make the hole too. So but I would definitely ask a grown-up to help you with that. You may also need some sort of covering or anything like that to put down on the table, and just so that if you do use some paint or anything like that, that you don't get it all over your surface. But yeah, so that is how you make a cool windmill, or a cool wind chime, not a windmill. But yeah, now I just have to go and find a good place to put it up outside, and then we can hear beautiful music all the time. All right, go ahead and pause if you haven't already made yours. Otherwise, let's talk a little bit about photography. So let's talk about photography. Photography is so cool because you capture a moment, you capture a picture, you get to decide what out in nature that you like and you want to remember forever. That's what photography is. You don't have to have a camera like this. This one's kind of fancy and big and crazy. You could use a disposable camera, you could use a Polaroid camera, you could even use a tablet if you have one, or a smartphone. Anything like that will capture pretty cool pictures. And what's cool about doing it digitally is that you can then start to manipulate some of the pictures with filters and that sort of a thing. But today, what I want you to do is think about zooming in. Because zooming in is exactly what I want you to do, all right? So I want you to think from the perspective of a bug, all right? I want you to think about how a bug might see the world. What does it notice? What does it see? What does it interact with? When you get down into the really zoomed in parts of our world, you get to see different textures and different pieces of different places. So what I'm going to challenge you to do is go out and take 5 pictures of the world from a bug's perspective, okay? Now, you can go outside, but if it's raining and you want to do it today, that's okay. What you can do is you can take a picture inside from a bug's perspective. I already did this, so here are my 5 pictures just to give you a little bit of inspiration. So those were some inspirations on how to look at the world from a bug's perspective. I realized you may not know what perspective means. So make sure when you think about perspective is how something looks at the world. So it could be because they're small, it could be because they're big and they always are looking down, they're always looking up. Think about it in that way. Get into the mind of a bug, and then go out into the world and live life like the bug, and then figure out what their perspective is and take a picture. See if there's something cool in that area that you can find. take a picture. Whatever it is, take a picture and let me see it. I want to see it. It'll be really, really cool. All right, you can pause here, go do, and we are gonna come back and I'm gonna have an interview with my next door neighbor about her garden, because she does really cool gardening. All right, see you soon. All right, guys, so we are in my friend Rocky's backyard. She is a hobby gardener, but she's also, I feel, a garden artist. So we are still doing stuff during the time when we need masks. So I'm going to put my mask on. She'll take her mask off and tell us a little bit about what she does and how she creates art in the world.
Hi, so I'm Rocky. I actually normally work at the library and I work with books and kids all day, but when I'm at home, especially right now, I like to get outside and play in the dirt. But I don't have money to go out and buy a lot of like big fancy expensive stuff people do for gardens, so I improvise and I do things like if I need to start seeds, I have muffin tins, and I actually earlier this year started my flowers in ice cube trays. They're the perfect size to hold just a little bit of dirt and a seed. And then when it comes time to plant stuff, I get really creative. Last year I didn't have any planters, so I took old cat litter empty jugs and painted them. So I had different colors for different plants. You can cut holes in them if you're growing things like strawberries. So, and I'll do some of those again this year. And then I have things like a favorite pair of shoes that I didn't want to get rid of. So I found a hangy, flowy plant that can grow in that. Or, I'll show you this. This is my absolute favorite. I grow chocolate mint, which tastes amazing, and I like to put it in my water and my lemonade and stuff. So I have lots of little pots of it, but I use out of the little tins from Trader Joe's sipping cocoa. Instead of throwing them away, I plant mint in them. So I now have 1, 2, 3, I think I have 6 or 7 different pots of mint just from one mint plant I bought last year.
Wow, that's so cool. So how long have you been gardening?
I started helping my mom in the garden when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So when my brother was really little, we got to have our own patch where we did cherry tomatoes. And so I learned how to plant cherry tomatoes and take care of them on marigolds and things like that. And then I started gardening on my own when I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And now I garden all the time because I have a lot of food allergies. So I find it's really helpful to be able to grow my own herbs and some of my own vegetables, because then I don't have to worry about whether or not they've been cross-contaminated with stuff that could send me to the hospital.
That makes sense. That is very cool. So, so tell us a little bit about your garden here. We'll take a tour in a second, but tell us a little bit about why you picked the pots that you have, or how you decided, hey, I want to make a planter out of that shoe, or that kind of a thing.
So a lot of times I'll have a plant that's ready to be planted and I won't have a pot yet. And I'm like, okay, what can I put it in? So I have jars and tins and shoes and all sorts of things like that that get made into planters for when the plants are really small. And then as it outgrows it, I'll put it into a bigger planter. And usually it just kind of depends on what the size of the plant is going to be. I have some things that started in pots about this size last year, and over the winter they started really thriving, my rosemary and lavender, so I started them this spring in bigger pots. When I start my tomatoes in a week or two, they'll start in really big pots to start with, so their roots can grow really deep. And I pick things that I know I'll eat, but then also things that I like to look at. So there's a lot of succulents. I have a cactus. Some of the little plants are ones that actually live at the library where I work, and since right now nobody's in the building, they came home with me so I could take care of them. And then they'll go back.
Very cool. Does color or anything like that go in some like artistic medium?
Absolutely,
go into
with
it?
color, yeah.
Okay.
Because I like things that are very colorful, and I kind of like to have a color scheme that's consistent throughout my apartment decor and my garden. So you'll see a lot of things that are in shades of blue. A lot of the stuff I own is turquoise and teal. My last car was turquoise. So to remember it, I keep everything around me in the same colors.
Okay.
But then I also, sometimes I'll just find something that looks like it's ready for my garden, but it's not the right color. So like I brought this down from the barn, at my farm, and I was like, okay, I don't like the orange, so I put a base coat of bronze on it, and then I'm gonna go back and paint some other stuff on it. I've got one hanging up there that was just kind of a regular orange, but it was starting to look kind of worn and sun damaged, so last year I did some paint on it to give it a design. So it just kind of varies depending on my mood. But then I also build things for my garden. This table started last year as just some crate frames, and it was a project table. This year I got some old pallets, and I am taking them apart. So I take apart the pieces. This one broke, so it can't go on there. But I just screwed in a new bar on here the other day, and I'm going to create an actual top for my table.
Cool.
So I can eat out here in my garden.
Very cool. So it seems like you do a lot with found items, which is
Oh, yes.
very sustainable, which is awesome for Girl Scouts.
So I love recycling, but sometimes I have stuff that can't be recycled, and I don't want to throw it away, like the shoes.
Yep.
Or a wind chime that I started making one time out of an old metal colander. I was like, okay, I can do this with bottle caps and a colander. Cool.
Awesome. Well, that's so cool. So, all right, so Rocky, we have talked a little bit about the kinds of planters that you use, the kinds of plants that you use, that sort of a thing, and how that is all creative juices and all that sort of stuff. Let me tell you, or not let me tell you, you tell me a little bit about your space back here with your planters, and is there a rhyme or reason? I see there's an Eiffel Tower in here.
Yeah.
There's some cool other things in here, so tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. So, last year everything was down on the ground, and the ground's really uneven, so it didn't work as well. And let me do this so they can actually see my mouth. So this year I started my smaller planters up on the ledge, so it'd be easier to water them, make sure they get enough sun. And I'm going to try and do different levels of planting this year. But I started out with this. I had bought this and I really liked it, and I wanted to put my mint in something big, so I took this old Eiffel Tower candle holder, and my mint is actually growing in and around it so that it'll kind of twine and trellis.
That's so cool.
Because mint does that really nicely. And then I was like, okay, what else am I going to put out? I tried to keep things to where it was color balanced. Eventually it all just kind of grew out of however. But I've got like my lavender and my rosemary that I use a lot for cooking and that I use for flavoring my water. I kept them together so I can quickly go to them. My catmint, I always grow some kind of catmint or catnip because I have 3 cats and you've got to have something for the kitties.
Of course.
So I've got that I grow. And then I've got some decorative things that I kind of tried to group them together. Like down here, I've got a flower that's starting. I've got a Christmas cactus that my boss gave me because she said she wasn't good with plants and she thought I could take care of it. So I put it in a bigger planter and stuck some shells in it from a special family trip. And it's actually starting to bloom now after just a couple months of my care. So everything kind of goes around. I keep my succulents together, and then I've got some different flowers that are growing. And I've got a whole bunch of different pots of this, which is Purple Heart. And I bought it last year, and I had maybe, when I bought it, about 2 stems that were this size. And it grew so well, and it really thrives and loves the heat. It'll start where you get gorgeous purple flowers on it sometimes. I now have, I think, 3 bottles and like 5 or 6 different planters that have this in it, including this old saucepan that I didn't need it anymore because I had gotten a really nice kitchen gift. So I drilled some holes in it for drainage, and it just grows things in there.
It's so fun.
You know, it's just kind of whatever I can find. I don't have as much space to be really crazy and creative out here like my mom does with hers. She's got a really old-fashioned baby stroller that she puts plants in, and some old chairs and pieces of driftwood. And I always really wanted to do one where you do a toilet. You can do different things in the planter that kind of grow out and vine like this, and then flowers in the bowl. But it has to be one of those old toilets that's really crazy colors.
Oh,
that's
sure.
fun. And I saw one where somebody did an old metal bed frame, and they did a whole bed of flowers in it. If I had the space, that's what I'd do.
Oh, that's
that
so
kind of
cool.
stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. So tell me a little bit about these planters right here, because those are very cool. I know that you're a librarian.
Yes.
Is that why you...
So this one actually was used as a sort of a treat after a big event at work, and so they sent them home. And they were like, here, we have extras of these, where somebody had taken pages of books that were being discarded. And I really liked that. I thought it was cool. So I tend to save jars in my kitchen and try and reuse them. So the other day I had some books that I had been doing a project with, and I said, okay, let's try and make my own. So I didn't have quite the right amount of glue, so they're not holding up as well. But I did 2 of my favorite authors. This is one of my favorite books since I was a little kid, and I have a lot of copies of it. So I just took some of the pages that I really liked where I had highlighted passages or circled things on it and turned it into a sunflower seed planter.
That's really cool. So it's almost like you said that is your favorite book from when you were a kid. You also said that you put some seashells that were from a family trip in one of them.
I've got,
is that how you kind of make your garden your own as well?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So last year, all of my plants, especially my tomatoes, had big giant seashells around. I have a whole big bucket from that trip. And that was how I helped keep weeds out. I didn't do that this year, so you can see there's lots of little things that have fallen from the trees and have started growing.
Yep.
Part of the reason I did that is I will confess, I hate weeding. That's why I garden in pots. I do not like weeding. I like to plant things, water them, and let them go. But then I also like to be able to take my things in the winter and still have them be nice and pretty, so small pots work better for that.
That's cool.
But yeah, all my pots have different things. Some of them have stuff in them, some don't. This one has had lots of different succulents over the years, and I keep a little Buddha in there and some coins from travels that my siblings have brought me back from different places. And I just keep different stuff in all of them because it kind of makes it its own special little garden. And it's something neat I can look at in my window or on my porch when I'm sitting out here doing art projects.
That's so cool. So that's awesome. So you said that you would love to do a bed.
Yes.
Is there any other kinds of interesting ideas that that is like your go-to if you had the space? What would you do to make a really creative garden?
So I like where people have done green walls and they plant and the plants are all. So I obviously can't do that here because I don't have the wall space. Plus I don't own this property. But there are some holes in some walls where I've been able to put in some little flowers that can start to grow. Or there's an old tree stump over here, and I've tried this before at a different place I lived. And the tree stump's just sitting there. It's dead. It can't go anywhere. It can't be pulled out. So I had some flowers I needed to plant. I planted them in the tree stump.
That's so
And
cool.
then because this tree stump's on an angle, I included seashells and rocks to help keep the dirt in.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. So the bits and pieces are not just, what I'm hearing is the bits and pieces that you add are not always just decorative, but they also have a reason to help the plants grow.
Absolutely.
Like your Eiffel Tower, your Buddhas keeping out all of the little sycamore droppings that we have, and
it
that's
helps
so
separate
cool.
the different plants. So everything kind of has a reason. There's markers that my mom gave me. She got from an artist she knew, and that helps me remember which plants are which. But it's also I love them because they're gorgeous handmade ceramic markers. Yeah. So I can put them there, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's my cilantro. Okay, so when it's not grown up as tall, I can see without having to move the plant around which one is which.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for showing us into your garden. I know that you want to show us your composter, so we're going to do that in a second, because that's also a huge thing with Girl Scouts. That's being eco-friendly, which is awesome. And thank you for helping us out.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking about it.
Yeah.
It's really fun. My 2 nephews are awesome. Complete opposites. Everyone else I can use to it. And for what I'm doing, my mom takes care of it.
So Rocky, can you tell me a little bit about your composter?
Yeah, so this one is a really simple one that I bought online. It's called a compost tumbler.
Mm-hmm.
So I put all my scraps in here. There's flies in there because they're helping everything compost. A lot of the waste we throw away is food waste, and that just goes to the landfill and does nothing. But when I put it in here, and then once or twice a week I come out and spin it around. In another month or two, I will have some of the best garden dirt you can get. What they usually call the stuff that you get after you compost is black gold, and it's way better than the dirt you buy in the bags at the store because it's all the green and brown matter that's broken down from your food and your plants, and I'll fix that in a minute. And then it helps the plants have more nutrients to regrow, and I really love that. I've loved composting since I was a kid. Here I don't have the space to build a big compost bin like I did at my mom's farm for her. And last year I made a compost bin out of some water buckets. And it's okay, except I didn't put drain in it, in the bottom, so that didn't work very well. And it's really hard, they're not big enough for you to really get them stirred. And that's an important thing when you're composting, is to stir it, or else it'll get too hot, and sometimes it can catch fire, or it just doesn't break down correctly. So I said, okay, with the space I have, I need to make an actual compost tumbler. And it was a little bit easier to go this route and buy one you can put together yourself. But I love this. Every time I eat something, as long as it doesn't have meat in it, I come out afterwards and put the crumbs and stuff in the compost bin. And you can put paper in there. I put empty toilet paper rolls in there. It's all sorts of different material that you can use. You can use weeds from your garden. We compost those at the farm a lot. And then later on, this will be great for my next batch of plants that I start further in the summer.